The sound of skull meeting wood echoed through the dining hall like a gunshot. Madison Clark's face pressed against the cafeteria table, blood from her forehead dripping onto the plastic lunch tray. Preston Whitman gripped her hair, yanking her head back with savage force. "This is what happens to scholarship trash," he snarled, his voice carrying across the packed room. 200 students raised their phones, recording every second. Madison didn't scream. Her lips moved silently, counting 17, 18, 19 cameras. Why would a victim bleeding from a head wound be counting camera angles? They were about to discover they'd just made the most catastrophic mistake of their lives. The footage would later show Madison's eyes weren't filled with fear, but cold calculation. Every angle, every witness, every piece of evidence was being catalogued in her mind. What Preston and his crew didn't know was that this moment had been 3 weeks in the making, and they'd just played directly into her hands. Before we dive deeper into Madison's brilliant trap, if you've ever been bullied or know someone who has, please hit that like button to support victims everywhere. Your comments, sharing your own experiences, help build a community where no one suffers alone. And if these stories of justice inspire you, consider hitting the thanks button below. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories to those who need to hear them most. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us reach someone out there who might be facing their darkest hour. Now, let's see how Madison orchestrated the downfall of Fairmont Academy's most dangerous predators. 3 weeks earlier, Madison Clark had walked through Fairmont Academy's marble entrance, looking every inch the scholarship student she claimed to be. Worn sneakers, second-hand uniform, careful posture of someone trying not to take up space. The elite Connecticut prep school reeked of old money and older traditions, where 85% of students arrived in cars worth more than most people's houses. Preston Whitman had noticed her immediately. Son of a pharmaceutical CEO, captain of the lacrosse team, and undisputed king of Fairmont's social hierarchy, he had a radar for vulnerability. "Fresh meat, boys," he'd announced to his crew as Madison passed their table on her first day. Ethan Caldwell, whose father sat on the state Supreme Court, grinned. Noah Sinclair, heir to a real estate empire and son of the school board chairman, cracked his knuckles. Madison had sat alone, opened a brown bag lunch, and pulled out a worn notebook. She'd felt their eyes on her but didn't look up. Instead, she'd made her first note in a code that would have meant nothing to anyone watching. 3 hostiles. Primary threat level assessment, high. Cameras, 12 in main dining area, 4 blind spots identified. The harassment had started small. On day 2, her locker had been filled with garbage, textbooks soaked in spoiled milk. Madison had calmly photographed everything before cleaning it out. When other students walked by laughing, she'd noted their faces. Witnesses, not participants. Important distinction for later. "She doesn't even cry," Ethan had complained after a week of escalating pranks. "It's boring when they don't break." Madison had overheard this from her spot in the library. She'd allowed herself a small smile while researching Fairmont's disciplinary history on her laptop. What she'd found had confirmed her suspicions. 3 students in the past 2 years had left under suspicious circumstances. Sarah Chen withdrew after a fall down the stairs that broke her spine. Kim Rodriguez overdosed on pills she'd supposedly taken voluntarily. And Lily Clark, Madison's cousin, who'd allegedly hanged herself in her dorm room 3 months ago. The police had ruled all 3 incidents as accidents or suicides. The school had expressed appropriate grief, made appropriate donations to mental health charities, and moved on. But Madison had seen Lily's texts the night she died. They won't stop. Preston says tomorrow will be worse. I can't take any more. Then, nothing. Madison's phone buzzed. A text from Dad, FBI, appeared on screen. Status update? She typed back quickly. Making progress. They're getting bolder. Then she deleted both messages and returned to her research. The lunch trials were Fairmont's worst-kept secret. Every Friday, Preston and his crew would select a victim for public humiliation in the dining hall. The staff turned blind eyes, later claiming they'd seen nothing. After all, the Whitman family had donated the new science wing. The Caldwell name was on the library. The Sinclairs practically owned the school. Madison had watched 2 lunch trials before her turn came. A freshman forced to eat food off the floor, while Preston live-streamed it. A sophomore girl who'd rejected Noah having her hair cut with scissors while she sobbed. Both had transferred within days. The pattern was clear. Humiliate, traumatize, eliminate. On the Thursday night before her trial, Madison had made her preparations. 5 recording devices hidden in various items. A body camera disguised as a necklace pendant. Her phone loaded with specific apps. She'd even worn a white shirt, knowing blood would show up better on camera. Every detail had been calculated. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling. Madison entered the dining hall at exactly 12:15 p.m., tray in hand, and sat at her usual isolated table. The energy in the room shifted immediately. Phones appeared. Conversations dropped to whispers. The weekly entertainment was about to begin. Preston approached with theatrical swagger, Ethan and Noah flanking him. "Attention, everyone!" Preston called out, though he already had the room's focus. "Today's trial is special. Our scholarship charity case thinks she's too good to acknowledge her betters." Madison looked up calmly. "I acknowledge you, Preston. I've acknowledged every single thing you've done." Her phone sat on the table, screen dark but recording everything through multiple apps. "Did you hear that?" Preston laughed, playing to his audience. "She acknowledges me. How generous." He picked up her notebook, flipping through pages. Let's see what profound thoughts occupy that charity case brain. He began reading aloud in a mocking voice. "Dear Diary, today I dreamed of a world where money doesn't determine worth, where justice exists for everyone, not just the wealthy." The crowd laughed on cue. Madison noted which students laughed genuinely and which were simply afraid not to. "Pathetic," Ethan added, grabbing her laptop. "Let me guess. Writing college essays about overcoming adversity. How original." He opened the screen, then frowned. Instead of personal files, the display showed legal documents. "What is this?" Madison's voice remained steady. Title 18, Section 242 of the United States Code. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Subsection 245. Conspiracy against rights. Would you like me to continue? Noah shifted uncomfortably. Did she just cite federal law? Trying to scare us with Google searches? Preston scoffed, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. He'd expected tears, not legal citations. "You think you're smart? Let's see how smart you are after this." Ethan lifted a bowl of hot soup from a nearby table. Madison glanced at her phone, confirming the recording status on her specialized app. The software she'd activated wasn't some basic voice recorder. This was forensic-grade technology used by law enforcement, capturing audio in admissible quality with blockchain verification timestamps. Every word spoken within 30 feet was being preserved in a format that would hold up in federal court. The app displayed "Recording, Cloud Backup Active" as Ethan approached with the soup. "Oops," Ethan said with fake innocence, pouring the hot liquid over Madison's laptop. The computer sparked and died. Guess you'll need to rewrite those essays. That's destruction of property exceeding $1,000, Madison stated calmly. Felony vandalism under State Statute 49-7-44. She pulled her hands back, letting the soup splash harmlessly on the table. As she did, her sleeves rode up slightly, revealing scarred knuckles that spoke of years of training. The crowd had grown. Teachers stood at the periphery, carefully looking elsewhere. Principal Stevens watched from the doorway before turning away. Madison caught his eye for a split second, long enough to ensure he knew she'd seen him. Another name for the list. "Hold her arms," Preston commanded. Noah hesitated, then grabbed Madison's wrists, pinning them to the table. Preston produced a cup of dark liquid. "Special drink for special girls. Bottoms up." Madison's nostrils flared slightly. "Rohypnol has a distinctly bitter aftertaste," she observed, "though I suppose you'd know that from experience." Preston's face darkened. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating that the drink you're trying to force on me contains a Schedule IV controlled substance. That's attempted poisoning, assault with a chemical weapon, and given your history with Kim Rodriguez, attempted murder." The name hit Preston like a slap. Kim Rodriguez, the girl who'd overdosed last year. The incident everyone agreed not to talk about. His hand trembled slightly, and in that moment of distraction, Madison shifted her cup with Preston's. The movement was so smooth, so practiced, that Noah didn't even notice. "Drink it then," Preston snarled, not realizing the switch. "Unless you're scared." Madison picked up the original cup and took a small sip of what was actually just soda. She let her eyes flutter, swaying slightly. "What? What did you—" She slumped forward convincingly. "Now that's more like it," Preston laughed. "Get her up on the table. Time for the main event." They hauled Madison's seemingly limp form onto the center table. The crowd pressed closer, phones held high. Madison kept her breathing steady, the controlled rhythm of someone trained to remain calm under stress. Through barely open eyes, she counted positions. Preston to her right, Ethan behind, Noah to the left. 200 witnesses. Perfect. "Ladies and gentlemen," Preston announced like a carnival barker, "today we teach a lesson about knowing your place. Scholarship trash needs to understand they're here on our charity. They breathe our air because we allow it." He pulled out his phone, swiping through photos. "See, this isn't our first rodeo. Sarah Chen thought she was hot stuff too. One little push, 32 stairs, and suddenly she understood physics better than any textbook taught her." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even some of Preston's supporters looked shocked. He was confessing to assault, maybe attempted murder, in front of hundreds of witnesses. Madison's body remained still, but inside she was cataloging every word. "Kim Rodriguez," Ethan added, getting into the spirit. "Thought she could report us to the cops. Funny how pills look like suicide when you force them down someone's throat." "And the best one," Noah chimed in, not wanting to be left out. "Lily Clark." Little Mouse actually tried to fight back. The rope was Preston's idea, made it look authentic. Madison's breathing hitched. There it was, the confession she'd waited 3 weeks to hear. Her cousin's murder admitted to casually, proudly, like it was just another Friday entertainment. Every word captured in perfect clarity across 5 recording systems. Preston grabbed Madison's hair, lifting her head. "You know what the funny thing is? This one's been here 3 weeks, thinking she's so clever, collecting her little evidence, taking her little notes." He pulled out a knife, small but sharp. Time to give her a haircut like that other girl, but first... He slammed Madison's head down onto the table. The impact was brutal, calculated to cause maximum damage. Blood immediately flowed from a gash on her forehead, spreading across the white tablecloth in a crimson bloom. The crowd gasped, some stepping back, but most kept recording. "That's assault causing bodily harm," Madison whispered, blood dripping into her eyes. "Aggravated for use of a weapon. 5 to 7 years minimum sentence." Preston laughed, raising his fist. "Still trying to scare us with your pretend law degree? Let me educate you about real power. My father owns judges. Ethan's dad is a judge. Noah's family owns this school. You're nothing. Just another charity case about to learn why you don't mess with your betters." He drew his arm back for another blow. Madison counted silently. 3, 2, 1. Madison moved like lightning. As Preston's fist descended, she shifted her weight, using a textbook Krav Maga deflection to redirect his punch into the table. The impact made a sickening crack, not the table, but Preston's wrist. He screamed, stumbling backward. The dining hall erupted in chaos. Students scrambled for better views, while Madison flowed into a defensive stance, blood still dripping from her forehead. Her transformation from victim to warrior happened so fast that phones barely caught it. The meek scholarship girl was gone, replaced by someone who moved with lethal precision. "Get her!" Preston shouted, cradling his injured wrist. Ethan charged forward, all 200 pounds of him barreling toward Madison. She sidestepped at the last second, using his momentum against him. A simple push to his shoulder sent him crashing into the dessert station. Pudding and pie exploded everywhere as he hit the ground hard. Noah tried to grab her from behind, but Madison had already sensed him coming. She dropped low, his legs, and watched him tumble over chairs. The entire takedown took less than 3 seconds. She hadn't thrown a single punch, only used their own aggression against them. When Preston's fist had slammed her head into the table, blood had splattered onto the biometric monitor disguised as a fitness tracker on her wrist. The medical-grade device did more than count steps. It recorded impact force, vital signs, and trauma indicators in real time. Every blow was documented with forensic precision, automatically uploaded to secure medical cloud storage. The G-force readings from the head impact alone would prove attempted murder in court. The technology, typically used in professional sports and military training, had just captured evidence that would be admissible in any federal prosecution. "Stay down!" Madison commanded, her voice carrying new authority. The meek whisper was gone. This was someone trained to take control of violent situations. A thin line of blood ran down her face, making her appearance even more striking. "Nobody else needs to get hurt." Preston struggled to his feet, face purple with rage and pain. "You're dead. My father will destroy you. You'll never work anywhere, never get into college, never—" "Your father is Richard Whitman, C. of Whitman Pharmaceuticals," Madison interrupted, pulling something from her pocket. "Currently under SEC investigation for insider trading. Net worth $2.3 billion, though that'll drop significantly after the lawsuit." She held up what she'd retrieved, not a weapon, but an ID badge. The FBI shield gleamed under the cafeteria lights. "Madison Clark, FBI trainee. I'm here investigating the suspicious deaths of 3 students, including my cousin, Lily Clark." The silence was deafening. 200 phones captured the moment Preston Whitman's face went from purple to white. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Behind him, Ethan tried to crawl away, slipping in pudding. That's impossible," Noah stammered from his position on the floor. "You're just a student. The FBI can't— minors can't be—" "I'm 19, Madison explained calmly. "Graduated high school at 16. Bachelor's in criminal justice at 18. Currently in my final year at Quantico. Specialized in undercover operations involving juvenile crimes." She touched her forehead, examining the blood on her fingers. This assignment was personal. She turned to address the stunned crowd, knowing every word was being live-streamed. 3 weeks ago, I enrolled here to investigate why healthy teenagers keep dying at Fairmont Academy. Thanks to Preston, Ethan, and Noah's detailed confessions, we now know they weren't suicides or accidents. They were murders. "We didn't confess to anything," Preston protested desperately. Madison smiled coldly. "Really? Should I replay the part where you bragged about pushing Sarah Chen down the stairs? Or when Ethan explained how you forced pills down Kim Rodriguez's throat? Or my personal favorite, Noah describing how you staged my cousin's murder to look like suicide?" She pulled out her phone, tapping the screen. Preston's voice filled the cafeteria from multiple recordings. One little push, 32 stairs, and suddenly she understood physics better. "No!" Preston lunged for the phone, but Madison easily evaded him. His broken wrist made him clumsy, desperate. "That's not admissible. You can't record without consent. My father's lawyers." "Connecticut is a one-party consent state," Madison cut him off. "Only one person in a conversation needs to consent to recording. But even if it wasn't, you confessed to murder in front of 200 witnesses, all of whom were recording. Also, threatening a federal agent is a separate felony. Please, keep talking." The dining hall doors burst open. Not students this time, but men and women in dark suits with FBI emblazoned on their tactical vests. They moved with practiced efficiency, surrounding the 3 boys who suddenly looked very young and very scared. "Daddy!" Preston screamed as agents cuffed him, careful of his broken wrist. "Call my father! He'll fix this!" A familiar figure entered behind the agents. The same height as Madison, same auburn hair, but 20 years older, with eyes that had seen too much. Deputy Director James Clark surveyed the scene, his gaze lingering on his daughter's bloodied face. "Status?" he asked professionally, though Madison caught the paternal concern underneath. 3 confessions recorded and verified. Assault with biological agent attempted. My cover's blown, but we got what we needed. She gestured to the crowd. About 200 additional witnesses with video evidence. Madison? Principal Stevens pushed through the crowd, face ashen. This whole time you were investigating why you covered up 3 murders for donation money? Madison finished. Yes, Richard Stevens, you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and violation of mandatory reporting laws. She nodded to an agent who immediately moved toward the principal. This is entrapment, Stevens protested as cuffs clicked around his wrists. You can't send a student to spy. She wasn't a student, Director Clark corrected. She was a federal agent conducting a lawful investigation. Every document she signed included fine print, disclosing her status to any administrator who bothered to read it. You didn't. The arrests continued. 3 board members who'd been eating lunch stood up to flee, only to find agents blocking every exit. Teachers who'd turned blind eyes to abuse found themselves answering hard questions. The entire corrupt system that had protected predators for years crumbled in minutes. Madison walked to where Preston sat, cuffed on the floor. She knelt to his level, voice quiet enough that only nearby phones picked it up. You killed my cousin because she tried to report you. She was 15 years old. Scared. Alone. You made her final moments hell. Tears ran down Preston's face, but they weren't from remorse. My father will get me out. We have the best lawyers. Your father's assets were frozen 20 minutes ago, Madison informed him. The SEC raided his office this morning. Turns out he's been bribing school officials nationwide to cover up crimes. You're not his only problem child, causing deaths at elite schools. She stood, addressing the crowd one final time. To anyone who's been victimized here, you're not alone anymore. FBI counselors will be available. To those who participated or stayed silent, lawyer up. We have everything. Hours later, Madison sat in an ambulance, getting stitches for her head wound. The parking lot swarmed with federal vehicles, news vans, and parents either crying with relief or frantically calling attorneys. 47 students had already come forward with their own stories of abuse. Her phone buzzed. Message from Quantico. Outstanding work, trainee Clark. Final evaluation complete. Welcome to the Bureau. Madison smiled, then winced as it pulled at her stitches. 3 weeks of being spit on, threatened, and finally assaulted had been worth it. Lily and the others would have justice. Preston faced life in prison. His crew would get 20 to 30 years. The administrators who enabled them would see significant time, too. Ready to go home? Her father appeared at the ambulance doors. Almost, Madison said, looking at her phone again. A new email had arrived, encrypted and urgent. She opened it carefully. 7 photographs filled her screen. 7 different elite private schools across the country. In each photo, groups of students were circled in red. At the bottom, a simple message. Similar patterns detected. Unexplained student deaths. Your next assignment, if you choose to accept it. Madison studied the images. The faces were different, but the dynamic was identical. Privileged predators surrounded by enablers and victims. Her stitches throbbed. Her body ached from the confrontation, but her mind was already working. 7 schools. How many dead kids? How many Lilies who never got justice? Madison, her father prompted gently. She looked up from the phone. Decision made. I'm going to need a new identity. Maybe someone older this time. College student teacher doing placement. Director Clark sighed, but nodded. He'd known his daughter wouldn't stop at just one school. The mission had become personal when they killed Lily, but Madison had discovered something bigger. A network of elite institutions where money bought silence and predators thrived. As the ambulance pulled away from Fairmont Academy, Madison watched the school recede in the mirror. Students still milled around, some crying with relief, others in shock at how quickly their protected world had shattered. By tomorrow, Fairmont would be national news. By next week, congressional hearings would begin. Real change would follow. But 7 other schools operated in darkness, thinking their secrets were safe. Madison touched her stitches absently, already planning. The hunt wasn't over. Fairmont was just the beginning, she murmured, forwarding the email to her new FBI account. The hunt continues. Behind them, Preston Whitman was loaded into a federal transport vehicle, his future destroyed by a lunch table confrontation he'd orchestrated himself. He'd wanted to break the new girl, to demonstrate his power. Instead, Madison Clark had turned his sadistic tradition into his downfall, using the very table where he'd tormented dozens as the stage for his destruction. Justice had been served with a side of irony. And somewhere in 7 other schools, other predators continued their games, unaware that their time was running out. The lunch trials were over at Fairmont, but Madison Clark's mission had just begun.